Hey there, fellas. So look, parked next to me I've got this lovely Moskvitch. You've seen it a few times. We've modified and improved it on a couple of occasions. And so in keeping with the tradition of making this car better, we'll be improving it yet again. In this episode we're making a nice, supple, and most importantly, modern suspension for it. And with that, let's get started. Even though the suspension in this car is soft as it is and provides plenty of comfort, it is definitely not modern. Now, you might remember that we actually experimented with air suspension, and some of you might even recall how that one ended. But this time, let's make a proper modern hydraulic suspension. We'll find out how effectively it's gonna work, how cool of a thing it is, and how you can make it yourself, right inside your own garage. But make it so that it works absolutely beautifully, to the full 107%. Let's get to it. Now, we have tried making an air suspension in the past, even though it was for a Lada. Which is why this time we're using a more durable car. We will draw from that experience while working on this project. The suspension layout is fairly similar. At least the geometry is. The placement of the components is different, but we'll base this design on what we did then, and try to mock something up. These are the air cylinders that we'll be converting into hydraulic cylinders. I've drilled the frame rail with a crown bit, and to be able to slip a pipe in, I'll massage this area with an angle grinder. So currently, we're making some spacers for our hydraulic bellows, because despite the similarities, a Lada and a Moskvitch are very different when it comes to suspension and body architecture. And as such, we need to increase the size of these seats, extend the tubes, because as they are, none of these parts currently fit. So cut these pipes, prep them, weld sections in, and do some test fitting. What we're doing, the idea isn't to give it a wide range of height adjustability. Instead, we want to make it as soft as possible, or perhaps for the stiffness to be variable, to allow for, say, highway driving. You know what I'd like to try? Try modifying this, to make it the load-bearing surface. Excellent plan, great idea. I'm making a spacer that's going to be placed on the axle. Check this out. It'll fit to the axle, here it is settling down. And over here you'll have that hydraulic pneumatic air freshener. This will be placed underneath the bellows, and welded straight to the axle. We went with this height for test fitting purposes. To straighten out the rake of the car, we don't have much space up front, and the front end could very well turn out to be lower than the rear. We don't want that, we want things to be even. We've made a cut, and if the bellow is pinched too hard, we can remove this part. If not, we'll weld this up and just leave it like it is. This is going to be placed about like so. Okay, so with the rear suspension, we've simplified it as best we could. Because, well, this used to have leaf springs, which were removed entirely. We've made a couple of arms to keep the axle in position, prevent it from moving back and forth. And in between the axle and the shell, we've placed these lovely bellows. You can fill them up, or you can empty them in order to allow them to compress. And so I'd say that so far this is going very well indeed. We've decided to make some retainers for the axle, to keep it from dropping lower than we want. And we'll be making the retainers out of regular old seat belts. And to ensure the suspension works well, we need for there to be proper circulation of the fluid. As for where it's going to circulate, inside the system, of course. And it should be able to flow unimpeded. And to ensure that, well, the diameters of the galleries need to be pretty big. We've actually made a similar system in the past, out of polypropylene pipe. Right here I've got some angled bits and fittings. And these are quite large, they are, to ensure free flow of the fluid. The setup will be the same as last time, except this time we're using liquid instead of air, which we want to be able to flow freely. Of course, we'll be able to restrict it. Now it's a matter of assembling everything, and from there the experiments begin. Let's go. As you might remember when we had that Lada, we used a wheel for a truck as the reservoir, and the tire popped because it wasn't durable enough. This time we're using this cylinder, we've got a sturdier car, and hopefully, this time things will be way more hardcore. We're using this propane tank as our reservoir. I'll be drilling a couple of holes. The upper fitting is going to be for filling it. On the bottom we'll have another fitting, out through which the fluid will flow into the hydraulic suspension. So check this out. Here we have got the galleries. We've routed the tubes through the cabin. The thing is that assembling this underneath the car would have been massively inconvenient. And this way it's all in sight. Connected to each bellow you've got some big tubes. The diameter translates to plenty of capacity. And over there we have the reservoir. It's a fairly small gas cylinder, and it's going to contain the bulk of the fluid. As for what we'll fill the system with, as per usual, we've decided to go the simplest possible route. We are going to be filling it with water. And so let's fill it up. And from there we're going to observe and learn how the whole system works. Let's go. Our testing has revealed that the rear suspension lifts up much higher than the front. And so we're going to be trimming these spacers. We made cuts in them with adjustment in mind. And yeah, we're going to remove this part. Check this out, we finalized the system, filled it with fluid. What I want to do now is open the valves, release the fluid so that it fills the bellows. Suspension stiffness will be adjusted separately. First we set the ride height, and then use the 4-valve array to change the stiffness. Let's go. Right, which way do I turn this? One at a time, and here we go. Don't overcook it. Oh, wow. Alright, so apparently this is the highest setting. I think the car is ready to go for a drive. We really need to head outside and drive on a road. And we have got just the right road outside for testing this sort of suspension. It's pretty beat up with plenty of ruts and potholes. Anyway, let's go try it out. Right? I would like to soften the suspension up. The ride is a tad harsh. What if I do this? Okay, the front end has become softer. Rear is still a bit too stiff, though. Honestly, I thought it'd be softer, to be honest. I'd better try reducing the pressure inside the bellows. It does ride better now, but here's the thing. The car rocks from side to side very noticeably. The suspension does seem to be on the stiff side. What if I shut all of these? Is anything going to change? What that resulted in, the car is now jumping around. Opening them back up. Alright, I've opened the front end, the rear is still shut. And already it rides better. Now let me open these. It got better, but I still wouldn't call this very comfortable. There is a definite lack of ride comfort. And that's fluid-free. If this would have been an air suspension, well, gases compress much more compared to liquid. And because of that, you get this sort of effect. It's not going to circulate as quick. Also, because of the long tubing, it's not able to quickly flow into the reservoir and then flow back into the suspension. And because of that, we're dealing with a stiff suspension. Not working? It is very stiff, I can tell you that. You know what cool thing I noticed? It does soak up the big imperfections, and the car doesn't rock around. I mean, I had all of the valves open, closed them even slightly, and that's it. We've decided to convert the hydraulic suspension into an air suspension. Right, guys, we've drained the water from the system. Now it's filled with air. I was about to drive around on air suspension, just like we wanted to that time, but then one thing stopped me doing that. Look at this. How can you even drive on a suspension like this? Over the bumps, the car is going to start hopping. It'll lose control, and that might result in, well, aside from other cars going by, I mean, even if they're just standing there, you might collide with one of them, hit somebody's garage or something else. And so we are going to add some shocks into the mix to keep the car planted. And we'll go for a drive once we do. Let's go. All right, we're looking good. We've pumped in some air. Shock absorbers are in place. And this should go well, I think. I mean, even when we were running the liquid, it felt fine at first. But then I promptly found out, no, I can already feel we're doing well on air. Yeah, this is good. Anyway, so with the liquid, you'll recall that when going over smooth imperfections, the suspension was working fine. But on the smaller stuff, it was having some issues. With the car shaking around and trying to get my spine to crumble. But now that we're running air in the system, the air obviously compresses. That's just sort of what air does. And because of that, the suspension feels utterly sublime. Honestly, this is so soft, and just so nice. Air suspension is a great thing. I mean, a hydraulic suspension is also cool, but apparently it has to be set up differently. But hey, the important thing is we tried at least. And so there it is, guys. The hydraulic suspension as it was originally conceived by us, with a reservoir and a bit of pressurized air. We were hoping it'd work very well, but it wasn't working the full 107%. But once we dropped the fluid and filled the system with air, I mean, air obviously compresses, unlike liquid, which doesn't as much. Anyway, then the suspension was working very well. Plus we fitted some stock shock absorbers, which did their job. At that point, the car was handling the bumps and imperfections in the road like a high-end luxury car. I mean, the ride comfort is just tremendous now. Now, some might say the suspension was good as it was, but now it's even better. So we were able to improve the suspension, but this Moskvitch is going to stick around. There will be a bunch of experiments involving it, I think. We'll definitely do something with it in the summer. Refill the system with liquid and try again. See how it does on the highway. This is a cool car, everybody digs it. Feel free to share your ideas on how we can improve it. And that's it for this video, catch you guys later.